Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network. We join you on this Monday evening after a pretty busy weekend as we move solidly into the month of June. I spent the weekend in Saratoga, and I caught the worst of it because they ran from Wednesday through Sunday. Wednesday and Thursday were beautiful days. Friday was and then Saturday was just torrential rain until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it just killed what would have been a great card. They even had to run the turf stakes yesterday, the Manhattan and the Jaipur. So it still was a very big crowd, and a lively crowd, and it was packed as you would expect Saratoga to be for the Belmont. And the horses got a chance to square off, and we saw what I pretty much thought would happen. I mean, within one exception, and that was I thought Sovereignty would win, but I thought Baeza would be the main competition. And then Journalism third. It came in Journalism, and then Sovereign, and then Baeza behind Sovereignty, who has shown himself now to be a very, very special horse. They're all good, really good horses. Those three, they stood out above. Rodriguez finished fourth. No surprises there. So we were fortunate enough to give you all three winners for the Triple Crown, but the last two weren't great betting propositions. All right. Now, what does Sovereignty go after? Remember, he is owned by Godolphin, which means he is owned by the Crown Prince of Dubai. So he has very different aspirations than, say, a American owner would. He's always wanted to win the Derby. Now he has. He followed it up with an impressive Preakness. I think he will be here through the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think you'll see him in the Travers. Then I think you'll see him in the Breeders' Cup Classic, maybe one in between. And then I think probably he will go after the big races in the Middle East next year before he probably retires to stud. So that will probably be what you see from Sovereignty going forward. And the question will remain, could he have been a Triple Crown winner? Maybe. But Belmont was making his declaration about what he thought about the scheduling in this day and age. And obviously he had Sovereignty ready to go on Saturday. I told you he had trained brilliantly, and he was he would look perfect and ran really well. All right. After the stunner from game one, OKC came back the way you thought they would in game two. The question now is, to me, not whether Indiana's going to win this series, because I don't think they are. The question is, how far are they going to extend it? This could be a 5-game series. Before it started, I thought it would be. There's a chance now Indiana could pick off one of the next 2 games and then make it a 6-game series. I doubt it goes 7. Indiana's the better team. I mean, OKC's the better team. They gave away game one, and it's amazing how many of those Indiana has won this year. Remarkable how many they have won this year, and how much Halliburton, hasn't been great always in every game, but every time he takes a last-second shot, it seems to go down. I mean, it is remarkable what he's been able to do from that standpoint. But there's still, it's funny, even after their dramatic come-from-behind win in game one, it didn't excite the nation. They still don't believe in the series at all. They really don't, and it would take Indiana. If Indiana wins game 3, I think the series will start to have it. If they win game 3, which means Oklahoma City actually faces real pressure in game 4, then I think the series will start to it will grab hold a little bit. But I think that's the only way it does. The only way it does is if Indiana gets a 2-1 lead in the series. If they win game 4, it won't even happen, because everyone will believe that they'll go back and try, jump them in game 5 and then win it in 6 games, which probably will be the case. let's get to the Mets and the Yankees for a second before we get to your emails. And I want to remind you that we will do the U.S. Open preview. And the U.S. Open is always a great event. Uh, to me, it really finishes the intense part of the golf season, except for this year. We do have the Ryder Cup late in September right here in our backyard at Bethpage Black. Um, that'll be the last weekend in September. Um, this year, even more so because of what we have seen from Scotty Scheffler. You know, it's funny, after Rory finally won his Masters, the result was, oh, Rory's got his Masters now. He has his Grand Slam. You know, hey, Scheffler, for all his winning in the last 3 years, has only won one major, only won majors in one place. He's won two Masters. He has to win somewhere else. Well, they threw it down and he picked it up, and boom, he already won another major. And now he will look to put together a run. Remember, he has just, since Rory's victory, he has completely dominated the sport. He is not just winning, he is winning in enormous fashion. He is winning by open lengths. He is winning by 4 strokes and 5 strokes and 6 strokes. And I mean, he is putting together a run that is becoming historic. And should he finish Father's Day and you see him on Sunday bouncing his little baby boy again after another victory, he will have put together one of the great runs in the history of the sport. And he will have taken his place as the next great golfer. You heard as he won Jack's tournament 2 weeks back, Nicholas say, plays like me. I mean, there's no better compliment. To me, we've seen 2 players since the days of Ben Hogan. We've seen 2 players who have just completely dominated the sport, Nicholas and Tiger. I actually would say, because of the stuff that happened to Tiger, I think Jack's career is even better. But they're both brilliant, brilliant careers. And now here comes Scheffler, and he is completely dominating this sport. I understand that we have fractured the talent pool with what has happened with Liv. I understand he's not facing a full field of players in every tournament, but let's see what happens this week at Oakmont as he goes after what would be 3 different majors already. He's already won 2 Masters. He followed that up with a PGA. Now he goes after the U.S. Open. Okay, every week he's on the board. He's a prohibitive favorite. We will get to that on Wednesday. In every tournament he participates in. And Rory's gone into a little bit of a nosedive here, so you can't even say, wow, it's a showdown. This man. Right now, it's about Scotty Scheffler and his attack of the record book. That's what this is as we go to the U.S. Open at Oakmont, and we will preview that for you and give you some long shots and give you some predictions. Hey, it's almost like 2 tournaments: the tournament with Scheffler, the tournament without Scheffler, because that's how dominant Scheffler has been again this year. Now, Mets did what they're supposed to do. They feasted on the Rockies over a couple of weekends. They beat them up. They won the games they had to win, and it's allowed them to run to the best record in the National League at 42-24. The only team that has a better record is the Tigers. The amazing thing about the Mets is obviously what Alonso has done this year, and he will become a bigger story going forward. The other thing is their pitching has been just so good. And it's amazing how the Mets, with this philosophy that they have pinpointed pitchers tremendously. And the performance they are getting is unbelievable. The pitching, the consistency, the efficiency of their starting pitching has been utterly amazing this year. The Mets haven't hit a whole lot other than Alonso and Lindor. They haven't hit a whole lot. They haven't hit with men in scoring position. They haven't been great this year like they were last year at hitting. They haven't been good at the bottom of the order. They haven't had that magical season with the offense, but their pitching has been unbelievable. And what you're supposed to do is beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and they did that. And right now, they are rolling along at a very, very good clip. And when you look at it, the way I look at it right now is this. Here is what they have leading up to what will be a very interesting round two. The Yankees and the Mets at Citi Field, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th of July, starting with a 3 o'clock, I believe a 3 o'clock game, might be 4 o'clock, but I think it's 3 o'clock on the 4th of July, on the Friday, the 4th of July. Then they play Saturday, they play Sunday. Before that, the Mets will play an interesting group of teams, but they will play 7 games with the Braves. And what the Mets can do right now is they can finish the Braves for the season. They can completely demoralize, and not only that, just put them in their rearview mirror and goodbye. They play them 7 times in the next couple of weeks, and they can put the Braves away. They will play the Nationals, then the Rays, then the Braves, then the Phillies, then the Braves, then the Pirates, and the Brewers before they play the Yankees on the 4th. Not bad teams, except for the Pirates. They'll see the Phillies. They'll see the Brewers, who have been playing well lately. The Nationals are no pushover, nor are the Rays. But they'll play 7 games with the Braves. And they have a chance to completely end any hope that the Braves have for rebounding this season in what has become a nightmarish season for the Braves. The Yankees are fortunate enough to be in a surprisingly weak division. A lot more was expected from the Red Sox, who just beat the Yankees, obviously, in the series, and again last night. And now today, the Red Sox are making news because the number one prospect in baseball, Roman Anthony, who I'm sure you've already heard about, and his exploits and his, monster home runs and everything else, is. I wish he would have showed up at Yankee Stadium, but I guess they figured let's not start the kid at Yankee Stadium. But they are calling Roman Anthony to the majors, and this is supposed to be the next can't miss big slugger, dynamic, can't miss player joining the Red Sox, and we'll see what we see from him right away as he is about to, make his major league debut. So, you probably heard about that, monster, 400, the monster tape measure home run he hit, the whole thing, the way the ball comes off his bat, the whole thing. You've heard about it. So now he's on his way to the major leagues. The Yankees, to me, yes, they're in a division that does not have a team that is, I mean, the teams are not terrible, but there's nobody there that looks like it's going to give them a real run to the finish. So they should be very comfortable. But I'll tell you this, I don't think it's a great team. Now remember, it got hit very hard with injuries, especially to Cole and to Heel and to Stanton, but they overcome that. But here's what they've gotten on their way to this start. And in their last 10 games, they're 5-5. They've lost the last 2 to the Red Sox, which I know always annoys people. You can question the bullpen. You can question some things in the starting rotation. But here's the other thing. The Yankees have had a lot of guys. Now, I wouldn't call Judge's start, yes, it's spectacular, but we've come to expect brilliant things from Judge, and let's get to him in a minute. But they have gotten a great start from certain players. Fried can't be any better than he's been. I'm not a big Rodon guy. He's been better than I thought he would be. They've gotten well-pitched games from guys that they really didn't expect it from. They've gotten good performances from guys they didn't expect it from. They've gotten a prolific start out of Grisham, who's cooling off and is going to cool off because he wasn't going to hit 35 home runs this year. I wanted Grisham to play. I like what he brings to the team. I didn't think he was going to hit 35 home runs. Nor did I think Rice was going to hit 35 home runs. They've gotten a lot of, Goldschmidt's been unbelievable. These guys are going to cool off. They're going to be able to cool off in this division. But I don't think this team is as good as some people might think it is. I think it's got holes. And it's got things it's going to have to fix if it wants to be a championship level team. It's going to be a playoff team. We know that. It's going to be able to coast to 90 wins and be a playoff team. Question is, and 90 wins will win that division. They're not going to get pushed to win that division this year. But I don't think it's a great team. And I think it has holes. Now, I want to get to Judge for a second because, last night again, 2 home runs. It just seems like every day. So I went and looked at a couple of things because I have just dismissed it out of hand, and I still do. Nobody's hitting 400, no less a right-handed slugger hitting 400, okay? It's just not happening. I think the discussion, frankly, from my standpoint, is silly. But when I talk about it being silly, he's hitting 396 after 240 bats, which is mind-boggling. But then you look at a couple of things, and it's even more impressive. His last 7 games, he's hit so the season he's hitting 396 with 23 homers and 55 RBIs with a 1.264 OPS, which is so far out in front, it's ridiculous. Now, amazingly, he doesn't lead the majors in home runs or RBIs. Okay? I mean, when you think about him leading, even leading the league, those numbers are not at the top of the league, either one. American League or overall. Now, the batting average is, the OPS is, on base percentage is. Now, so he's hitting 396, which is insane. His last 7 games, he's hitting 375. His last 15 games, he's hitting 396. His last 30 games, he's hitting 364. For the season, he's hitting 396. He has been like a straight line. Do you know the most? He's only once this year had back-to-back games where he didn't get a hit. He went 0 for 4 and then went 0 for 2. That's the only time this year he went 2 consecutive games without a hit. One time. In already over 60 games, one time. A guy who is incredibly stat conscious, like Pete Rose used to always drive himself and say, get my hit every day and I'm fine. The rest will take care of itself. But just get my hit every day so there's no prolonged slumps. What Judge has done has been unbelievable. Not going more than 2 games, 0 for 6. The longest he's gone. Now, the point is, he has had only 2 games back, 2 games back to back where he didn't get a hit. Every other time, he's had a hit in the next game. Every single time. He's had 30 multi-hit games. Already 30 multi-hit games. These are incredibly remarkable numbers, but the consistency of the performance this year, not wavering, not getting, red hot and then cooling off. He hasn't had a slump. There hasn't been a slump. And you're 240 bats in, and he's batting 396, which is every time it goes down a little bit and you see it down around 390 or right back up. Remarkable. Do I think he could hit 400? I do not. I don't think it's humanly possible to do. Um, it is so much harder for a right-handed. It's so much harder for a slugger to do it. It's so much harder for a right-handed hitter to do it. I just don't think it's even human. That we could even have that discussion to me is almost comical. But what he has done so far and the level of consistency, day in, day out, watching him play is just utterly remarkable. I did not get to watch Bonds when Bonds was at his zenith, and I'm not bringing the steroids into it because you know what? I don't know what to say about the steroids, how much they aided him, or anything else. I'm just talking about when Bonds put up those insane numbers. He did things that no one's ever done. They refused to pitch to him. They have not treated Judge that way. Remember, when you look at Bonds, and I don't know if folks, I don't know if they realize this. I mean, the league the league stopped competing against Bonds. They have never ever I'm not saying that Mickey Mantle got walked a lot. Ted Williams got walked a lot. Judge gets walked a lot. Nobody saw anything like what Bonds did in his heyday. When you go to the 2004 season, Barry Bonds, okay, Bonds played in 147 games. He went to the plate. His plate appearances was 617. His at bats was 373. Why? He walked 232 times. You heard me. 232 times. He got 120 intentional walks. Players don't get 120 walks. He got 120 intentional walks. They stopped pitching to him, and he became a player in that year and in those years where if you threw the ball inside on him, he was going to hit it out of the ballpark. That year, in 373 plate appearances, he hit, you ready? He struck out 41 times. He walked 232 times. He hit 45 homers in 370 at bats. We've never seen anything that even approached that. Now, what we watch Bonds do right now, okay? I mean, when we watch what Judge does right now, we are amazed at his consistency. We revel in his power. Okay? How many times you see him hit a home run? How many times you see him get a big hit? But realize he is not being treated in any way like that. Okay? Last year, last year, he walked 133 times. This year, he has walked 44 times. This guy is hitting 396. He is destroying the American League. He has 44 walks. They are pitching to him all the time. He's had 14 intentional passes. Barry Bonds had 110. He had 232 walks. They said, "We're not pitching to him anymore. Done." Now, do we see a point where teams start to treat Judge even remotely like that, where he's getting 2 and 3 walks every night? We have not seen that yet. They continue to challenge him, and he continues to beat them. Fascinating. But when I saw Bonds play in that era, you could not get a pitch past him. If you challenged him. Now, it's funny, Johnny Franco, as an example, did really well against him. There were a couple of guys who did really well against him. But for the most part, you couldn't go near him. On the inside, he would just turn and hit the ball out of the ballpark. Judge, with his all-around play, is showing us a level of play that ranks with Ruth. Mantle 56 has always been considered in the modern age of baseball as good a year as we've ever seen a player have. He's having that kind of year. And he led the major leagues in all 5 premier categories. Mantle led the majors, not just the American League. He led the major leagues in all 5 categories. Judge is not doing that right now. But his consistency and his batting average. And yes, somebody has more homers than he has, but he's hitting a tremendous amount of home runs. So it'll be fascinating to see whether the pitchers take a different tact if he continues to just pound on teams the way he does. It will be fascinating to watch. But could you have a better start to a season than he has had? 23.55, 396 with a 1.264 OPS. Fields his position, runs the bases. Been amazing to watch. It really is. When you see a player at that level, it's extremely, extremely rare. Is he as fearsome in the box as Bonds was at the height of his career? No, he's not. I never saw anything like Bonds. Never saw anything like the way he was those years. You want to say it had to do with the drugs? I have no idea what the drugs did for him, didn't do for him. I don't know how anybody can qualify in any way exactly what the drugs did for him, because I don't know what they did for him. Was he on drugs? Absolutely. So were a lot of other players. I don't know what they did for him. They clearly helped him. He clearly got better and better, but I don't know what they did for him. Sharpen his eye, give him a better fast twitch motion, give him more strength. I don't know what they did. I just have no way to in any way qualify it. But obviously the player we saw then was, but I didn't get to watch him on an everyday basis, but what we saw from him statistically was insanity and nothing short. Remember, we'll do the U.S. Open preview for all you golf fans, and you get to sit back on Father's Day and watch the final round. And it really is It's a good event, and the Scheffler historic storyline, I think, makes it even more interesting. All right, podcast time. Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. Seth starts us off. Looking back to the Knicks season, do you think they would have reached the Eastern Conference Finals if the Cat trade was never made? Interesting question. I think their ceiling was higher, but I think last year's team, if healthy, could have done the same thing. So I think the answer is they could have. I don't know if they would have. They were a different team. I told you from the day the trade was made, where I had my reservations. Randall had to go. Leon Rose knew that. Everybody around that team knew that. They did not want to give up DiVincenzo in the trade. They tried very hard. Now, they were pursuing Cat for 2 years. They tried very hard to get him without putting DiVincenzo in the trade. Couldn't be done. They traded him. They broke up the band. This year's team had a higher high and higher expectations, and that's what was disappointing. Because remember, the Knicks lost a series they were favored in, and they gave away game one in a way that will be remembered for a very long time. But Indiana was every bit as good as the Knicks. Casey, you've spoken about how NFL coordinators don't always make good head coaches. We'll go without question. In the NBA, are assistant coaches any more predictable as head coaches? No. You don't know. You don't know if a good basketball mind or a good football mind or a very talented assistant coach. My old buddy Rick Majerus, if you know that name, it's getting the years now that he's been gone. Was a brilliant coach, and he always said to me, he said, people don't understand how much your life changes when you move that 18 inches down the bench. When you sit here in the second seat versus when you sit in the head coach's seat. Head coaches are no longer specialists. The assistant coach, the offensive coordinator, the assistant head coach, the guy who runs the offense. Most basketball teams have a guy who's a defensive coach and a guy who's an offensive coach. Okay. You might give the third assistant the special plays, which means you give them the SOBs and the BOBs, which is slide out of bounds, baseline out of bounds, and you give them special teams, and you give one coach the offense, one coach the defense. Now, the bottom line is you're still a specialist. You don't have the other parts of the job. When you become a head coach, you have to become a leader, a voice, a problem solver. You have to deal with the owner. You have to deal with your star. You have to deal with the media. There are so many facets to the job that have nothing to do with what you did that made you good in the first place. You were an X's and O coach who maybe related well to players. But remember, the players never had any problem with you because you weren't the head guy. So you could be their buddy. You could be their teacher. You could make them better. They could lean on you. They could confide in you. Now you're the head coach. You're responsible for their careers. You're responsible for their minutes. You're responsible for their futures. You're responsible for their contracts. It's a whole different world. So when you elevate any person into that position, same thing with a business, all of a sudden you're not running a department, you're running the whole place. And now it's not just this is your job, this is your job. And you just don't know. You just don't know. I've always used Bill Arnsparger because he's the perfect guy. North Turner's another good one. Bill Arnsparger was Don Shula's right-hand man with the great Miami Dolphin teams, including the undefeated Miami Dolphin team. He built the no-name defense. He built one of the historic teams of all time. And Shula was a straight offensive coach, and he delegated the entire defense to Arnsparger, the guy you never saw. Okay, but you knew he was there, and you knew he was running this defense, and boy, wasn't he going to be a great head coach. And when the Giants hired him as their head coach, everyone went crazy. This is a can't miss. He went 7-24 as the Giant head coach. He was not a head coach. Now, Bill Belichick was in that same position as a dynamic defensive coordinator. He became a great head coach. You don't know. North Turner didn't. Bill Belichick did. Bill Arnsparger didn't. Sean Payton did. Okay, another guy didn't. Tom Coughlin did. You don't know who's going to be coming. There's no way of knowing. There's just no way. Hey, when Popovich became their head coach, no one even said a word. Bill Parcells, they were running out of town his first year as a head coach. They were running him out of town. The Giants tried to get rid of him. Became one of the great coaches ever. The Giants were running him out of town in his first year. You just don't know. There's no way of knowing. It doesn't matter who you hire. You're not going to know until they do the job as head coach whether they can handle all the facets and are comfortable in that role. There's just no way of knowing. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Knicks getting the freak? Listen, nobody can turn down that type of extreme talent. But you'd have to tell me, what are they giving up? Because I have to see what the team looks like with the freak in it versus getting him, not getting him, and what am I left with? I have to know that before I can answer the question. I can't just answer the question because I don't know what it's going to take to get him. I would think a third team would have to be involved, but what is coming off the current roster? And I would have to know that. I think it is unlikely. I'm very hopeful they don't get Durant. I'm against Durant coming here. I think Durant's on the downside, and I think he'll hurt any team he goes to. Unless he goes to that team in a very specific, very controlled, points per minute role that he can do because he's a prolific shooter. I think the Knicks are going to be, in terms of their big players, the same team they were last year. I think the question is going to be how they build the bench. I don't think any of the starters will be gone. I think it's more likely they come back with the same core and a different coach. And I'm sure you've heard that Jay Wright bowed out gracefully by saying he and Leon Rose are friends. They did talk, but they did not, he was never offered the job. Even if he was, he's never going to say he was, because Jay Wright does things in a very classy, humble manner, and he never will make anybody look bad. So that's why everybody likes him. So he's not going to do that. I told you all along he didn't want to coach because that's what he's always told me, that he was very happy in retirement, and I think he is. I don't know if Jason Kidd will get this job or not. I really don't. Doug, do you think there is any shot Alonzo does not opt out after how he is performing this season? No, I don't think there's any chance. I don't think there's any chance. And I do think there's a very good chance he leaves because I really believe that despite this year, I do not think the Mets are going to offer him a very lucrative long-term deal. I don't think they want to make a long-term commitment to him. Even despite this year, I don't think they believe in that I think they feel he's going to break down. And they might be wrong, they might be right, but I think that's their commitment. Neil, what's your take on Volpe at this point in his career? He's been spotty. Couple things to like. I think the defense gets a little more acclaim than it deserves, but I think it's good. I don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think he plays the game the right way. I think he gets a lot of extra base hits. You could live with him with your shortstop for 10 years without any question. I don't think he's going to be a star. I think he's going to be a solid player. I think he's a player you could win with. I don't know if he's going to shine in postseasons or not shine in postseasons. We don't know that yet. We'll see that over a period of years. He's got plenty of pop. He gets a lot of extra base hits. Do I feel compelled to replace him? I do not. Would I replace him if the right thing came along? Maybe. But I would not feel like I couldn't live without him, but I wouldn't be running out the door to get rid of him. I would say he's been okay. I wouldn't say he's been good. I wouldn't say he's been bad. I'd say he's been okay. I would give him a passing grade for his performance so far in pinstripes. Not an A, but I'd give him a passing grade. Do I think he's going to be, a guy who's going to wind up, having his number retired? And the Yankees, are going to be given triple digits soon with the numbers. I'm not a big believer in that. That's become a marketing tool. That gets talked about all the time. And I understand what it means to the player. But let's be honest. The Yankees have completely cheapened the process. They've done it to honor the players. I think genuinely want to honor the players. But more than anything else, it's a way to sell tickets and market the program and market the stadium and market the building and market the uniforms and market everything else. Hey, the idea of retiring numbers was supposed to be the highest honor, in my mind, the highest honor you could achieve. If they retired you a number, no one can wear this number again. It was because you were Ruth, a Gehrig, a DiMaggio, a Mantle, a Mariano, even a Jeter, Whitey Ford, Yogi. But a lot of the other numbers, retiring numbers of guys who played 5 years for the Yankees, even Reggie Jackson, 5 years for the Yankees, not a chance. 5 years and you get your number retired? They retired numbers of guys that I really like very much. But do I think the numbers should have been retired? Absolutely not. I think you should be able to now the Yankees have a lot more than most because they're the Yankees. There are some teams where I wouldn't even probably have more than one retired number. And in the old days, they didn't. If you had, Ted Williams in Boston, you retire his number. If you have Sandy Koufax in LA, you retire his number. Jackie Robinson goes without saying, that's a whole different deal. You are retiring the number because the player is not only a Hall of Famer, he is probably immortal. And go down that Yankee list and tell me how many of those players are immortal. Now, maybe only 4 of them are immortal. And that would be 3, 4, 5, and 7. But you can make a good case for 16. You can make a good case for 8. You can make a really good case for 42. And I think he is immortal. You can make a solid case for Jeter. Not automatic. Automatic would be, in my mind, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 42. That would be automatic because Mariano was the best there ever was at what he did. It's a more modern position. It's a different game, but his dominant level as a relief pitcher may never be equaled, or it will take a long time for someone to come along and do what he did. He was immortal. But that, if I had more than 8 for the Yankees, I'd be surprised. You can't even count how many numbers they have retired. And they retire numbers for people, who are on the team for 5 years. How do you retire a guy's numbers been on the team 5 years? So it's become a very different thing. It's become something that they do to make the fans happy, to sell uniforms, and also I think to sell tickets. Hey, we're retiring this guy's number. Give him a day, fill the stadium, blah blah blah. That's fine. I understand it's a business, but they have, in my mind, cheapened the process a long, long, long time ago. We'll see you later.